place in front of my flat. So even I have done shopping. So that is an occasion to go out.
I see. Oh, that's nice. You are one of the lucky ones then.
Yeah.
Okay, I can see so many people joining in. Thank you. I know some people I'm familiar with, and I'm sure you know most of them as well.
I know most of them. Yeah.
Okay, let me just check the time.
Mm-hmm.
Hello, everyone, again for the newcomers.
How many people can join?
As many as, I mean, it's up to them. I don't think there's a limit to it.
That's nice.
Unless sometimes the screen freezes, that becomes a problem. Otherwise, it should be okay.
Okay then.
Okay, so let's just wait for 1 more minute and then continue.
Let's speak. Okay.
Okay, shall we start, hocam?
Right.
Shall we start? Okay. Hello, everybody. Welcome to our live chat. My name is Sibel Ergün Elverici. I'm here on behalf of İstanbul Öğretmen Akademileri. Most of you know İstanbul Öğretmen Akademileri, but let me just give you a brief information. A few words about it. It's part of İstanbul İl Milli Eğitim Müdürlüğü and trying to work as a bridge between continuous education and teachers as well as administrators with a holistic view. We put human beings, anything related to humans, teaching and education in the center. Today we have a very important guest with us. I've been lucky to be one of his students. That was a long time ago, but we've always kept in touch. Most of you already know him. It's a great honor and pleasure for me to introduce him here today, Professor Turan Paker from Pamukkale University. I'd like to give a brief information about him. Professor Turan Paker graduated from Selçuk University English Language Teaching Department. After that, he had his MA at Bilkent University and continued his PhD in Çukurova University. He took many different positions during his career, such as being the head of UAK accreditation group member in several studies with YÖK and MEP, and he conducted many projects with World Bank and MEP, improving national education and Erasmus projects. Turan Hoca has also been the chief editor of several prestigious journals. As I said at the beginning, he is currently working at Pamukkale University ELT department. Among the subjects he is interested, he particularly likes testing, and we are here to talk about testing English. There are not enough words to describe what Turan Hoca has actually done. So I'll stop here and welcome him. Again, Turan Hocam, welcome. Lovely to see you.
It's nice to meet you and with the people who took part.
But it's a bit complicated. Skills or other areas of teaching. So if we are to start with a general introduction, how would you define
A nice community? First of all, let me say why I'm interested in testing. Well, you know, we always wanted to be a good teacher, the teacher whose students can communicate in the target language. Then I realized that what we taught is not consistent with what we have tested. So that's why I'm interested in what was wrong, why our students could not communicate as a result of almost 1,500 hours of education from primary to high school. That was a waste of time, waste of money. Then what is testing? Testing is assessing, or it is part of assessment, because people usually, you know, confuse testing and assessment. Assessment can be done on paper and pencil, traditional as we do. Then we can also have assessment through observation, through self-assessment, peer assessment, interview, journal writing, etc. Assessment. Then we can talk about different issues of assessment as well. But today I want to focus on especially achievement tests as in the as it is used in the field. And why achievement test? Because a lot of teachers has the right to teach and test. That's the privilege of being a teacher. So when the teachers teach, well, they try to teach communicatively, task-based, content-based, topic-based, and most of them are structure-based, of course. And in this respect, if we just consider what we measure, in fact, is very important. And people talk about, of course, when we talk about testing, we should talk about two main issues: validity and reliability. And the test items that you prepare is valid or not. Then especially content validity is very important. Then the slogan is test what you teach. So if you teach 4 skills for the purpose of communication, then we should test 4 skills. Otherwise, as it happens in Turkey, some teachers try to teach communicatively, and they try to teach listening, speaking, reading, writing. But as for testing, most of them test their students through mechanical drills. I mean, just grammar-based testing and vocabulary, and no skills. Students usually ask themselves, teacher, what are you going to ask in the exam? And so the teacher says, yeah. Then at the end of the day, these students are not stupid. I mean, if they are not going to be tested on skills, why should they bother to learn? So then the term comes washback effect, then which we call this negative washback effect. So in fact, that's the damage that the teachers give themselves, destroy their teaching by testing non-communicative ways. That's the main problem in Turkey. In fact, it is so simple that teach communicatively and test communicative. So today we are going to talk about that. And the other thing is content is what's going to be the content? What's the content of English? If we look at our syllabus, usually the content starts with the student and immediate environment like family, school, objects around, street. Then that goes on like the pebble thrown into the lake in circles. It just, you know, extends to the word issues depending on the level and age group as well. So the main problem in Turkey, not only English, but in all areas, no one asks what is the testing instrument, but everyone talks about the results. So according to test result, you are in this slot, especially in norm reference testing, students are compared and contrasted and placed accordingly. Especially the main problem is university boarding exam and also high school boarding exams. So students are tested only by reading, especially in terms of language teaching. I mean, English, German, French, etc. So then students and dershane, private schools prepare students for the test items. So if the test items does not include 4 skills, then students will not get ready for the real life. But the main problem here is usually teachers confuse the proficiency test with the achievement. As a result of which students are placed. But in the classroom, we test what we teach. So that we should make the distinction first. And the other thing is, if you don't test what you teach communicatively, then you have only one thing in your hand. What is it? Testing grammar and vocabulary, but no skills. So at the end of the day, we have such a product. I mean, think about the tailor. The tailor says, I'm going to use a test measurement item as a meter. So if the tailor uses meter, maybe he will get the right product. Why? Because he can be really metrical. What if the tailor says, I'm going to use liter? I'm going to measure your body with liters. Your hand is such and such liter. Your body is such and such liter. At the end of this measurement, can he have a good jacket, a good trousers? Or would it be appropriate? Of course not. Everyone will laugh at it. So that's what's happening in Turkey. We teach through, let's say, liters, but we test with meters. So we never have the product with desired. And at the end, what kind of product do we have as a result of primary, secondary, and high school education? The products are deaf and dumb. I mean, who cannot hear the foreign language and who cannot utter just one sentence, except one sentence. Why? Because in the classroom, usually the teachers spend the time making one sentence with certain prompts, like make a sentence with simple present tense, simple past tense, active voice, passive voice, etc. So these students cannot communicate because there is no prompt coming, make a sentence with certain grammatical point.
I see. We are having some comments and also questions as well. I'll try to ask you during the chat or also at the end, maybe. But so basically, we should test what we teach, but from what you're doing exams, but maybe in classroom, as teachers, we can contribute, we can help our students improve their language skills, at least by trying to test well, trying to put all the skills well. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. And the other thing we should keep in mind that our students usually in Turkey are at A1 and A2 level. So which means they are going to go through interlanguage. What does interlanguage mean? Students will transfer from L1. Chomsky says all the exceptions in English will turn into students as mistakes. So think about how many exceptions there are in English language. Then we will have thousands of mistakes. Then when are they going to get over these mistakes? I say in Turkish term, 3 vakte kadar, in 3 times. So the teacher should be as patient as a mother. So they will go through this stage. And I always give this example. For example, can you think of a mother whose child says, cicişlerimi, baklalarımı yiyip hatta gittim? Then think about the mother who says, ne cicişi? What is this? We don't have such a language in Turkey or in Turkish. what is above? You should say ayakkabı and ask the baby to say, repeat after me. Ayakkabı, ayakkabı. 100 times the child says ayakkabı, as it happens in the classroom. Do you think that child will communicate with that mother? Of course not.
Oh, no.
So that's the main inconsistency. In the classroom, we should tolerate. I mean, a lot of teachers tolerate. I get feedback from my students when they go through school practices. Yes, in the classroom, we tolerate, for example, A1 and A2 students usually respond with words and chunks, but our teachers expect them to make accurate sentences. So that's called native speakerism. So we don't expect them to be native speaker, but they will go through this stage, A1 and A2 level, communicatively. In testing, you should tolerate their interlanguage problems. So in that case, students should be asked such tasks that their grammar problems, even pronunciation problems, can be tolerated by the teachers. Then, of course, these things, I mean, these problems should be recorded by the teacher individually. The teacher should have an individual log of each student. Then they can use them as diagnostic purposes and provide comprehensible input so that by the time they will go get over these problems and repair their problems.
Oh, I see. So if you're going to penalize, I don't know if it's the right word, penalize a student, if it's grammar, and if the student makes a mistake in grammar, penalize him in terms of grammar. But if it's reading or if it's speaking, we should ignore that grammar mistake as long as meaning transfer happens, yes?
That's right. And also, especially in speaking, low-level students can take part in speaking both verbally and verbally and non-verbally. But on paper, we cannot see their non-verbal reactions. But if you do such an interview, or if you observe students taking part in activities, then we can also get their non-verbal reaction, and we understand that they understand, but because of the limitation of their language, they can produce only one word, one chunk, or sometimes just body language. So that's why, what's our purpose? To improve communication or to improve their linguistic ability. So think about Canal and Swain's communicative competence. It's not only linguistic competence, but also we have to improve our students' discourse competence, strategic competence, sociolinguistic competence, and we should bring tasks into the classroom and tests also so that they can use all these competences. So what can we do? Then we have 4 skills in our hand as a means that we can test their language. What is it? Listening comprehension, or nowadays even I don't do any listening comprehension, but I usually assign students prediction, scanning, skimming, referencing, depending on the level. And especially with A1 and A2 level, we can improve only these sub-skills. I mean, prediction, skimming, scanning, and referencing. But when they move up to B1 and above level, we can add deducing meaning of new words from context and information transfer. And what else? If they move up to B2 level, critical reading, critical watching, and also recognizing discourse patterns in the text, like topic sentence, supporting ideas, and in an essay, introduction, body conclusion, and what are these elements? And then we should provide them models as well that they can imitate initially, then they should imitate it until they get competence. Then when they get competence, we expect them to be creative. So that's the whole process of learning. So what do we test? So we should always take into account the process that the students go in second language acquisition. Then we should accept their interlanguage problems with A1, A2, B1 level. and then we should continue B2 and above level. We can be really particular about their grammar because that's the repairment period that I would name. But initially, what are you going to repair? Because students can only understand certain words, certain expressions, and produce them back to you. Then in that case, we should let them enjoy it and also do whatever they can. So in production, for example, A2 level, students, you know, we have lovely topics in both math books and also British or American books. What are they? Students talk about their family. They introduce themselves. They talk about their routine. They talk about sports, hobbies, likes, dislikes, holiday, etc. These are lovely topics that age group can understand and talk. So in through receptive skills, listening, watching, and reading, we provide input. We provide what kind of discourse, what kind of vocabulary, what kind of chunks or expressions are used. Then we will students just imitate those input and then try to improve. Then, for example, once upon a time I used to teach ortak zorunlu, you know, because throughout my teaching life, I taught in the Ministry of Education. I worked as an okutman, then yardımcı doçent, assistant professor, associate, and I went through all these stages. So I used to do this when I was teaching English in general English in the university. That we were just, you know, deciding 10 topics for one academic year. So we were, and students rated which topics they were interested. Then we just focused on skills-based, I mean, their daily life, and through pair work, they would express it, or they would tell 5 different students during the lesson so that they would improve. Because it's like cooking, you know, you cook one material only once, you will have some problems. That's inevitable. But if you cook the same food 100 times, or let's say every day within 1 month, you will become an expert. So language is just like this. I mean, we don't need to use a lot of materials to open ears of the students and mouths of the students. We have, let's say, 10 topics each year, and based on those 10 topics, they should be listening, watching, reading, and talking, writing individually, as a pair, as a group. So that's possible. So when it is time to test students traditionally, students used to ask me, what will you ask? And I said, we have covered 4 topics. We have written 4 paragraphs so far. I'm going to ask one of them, but not the same characters, but different parallel questions. So students would get really good marks, and they have self-confidence. So the main problem in Turkey, through testing, we destroy self-confidence. Then if your self-confidence is destroyed in language learning, you stop it. So while I was working in the School of Foreign Languages, when the students come to prep, I would ask them, what's your level? And usually they uttered this statement in Turkish, I love it. I am Çakmaz. Which, I mean, that's a very interesting statement, isn't it? I am Çakmaz, half English, half Turkish. So which means I know some, but I cannot produce anything. Why? Because this traditional system produces these type of students, and it's a pity that people from university or those who work in the School of Foreign Languages, if we have statistics, how many students can start with B1 level at the prep program? Believe me, for example, we used to have 2,500 students in the Pamukkale University when I was the director. Among 2,500, we would start only one group, 20 or 30 students with B1 level. But 2,000 students would start with A1 level. I mean, that's the waste of money, waste of time. Then what are we doing? Why? But if, imagine that each student takes skill-based testing from the primary school to high school, they take a test, at least 3 written tests, and if the teachers arrange one speaking exam each semester, Can that student say, I cannot say anything? No, because here washback effect will take place, positive washback. Ready this. I mean, which student would like to fail a course? None of them. So they rehearse, they get ready for this. Then, as a result, if the students know that they'll be tested based on 4 skills, in written, listening or watching, reading and writing, and as part of it, once in a semester speaking test, or it could be done twice, then they get ready. Then at the end of even middle school, at the 8th grade, when they graduate, they will be able, when I visit the schools, very few. And usually teachers say they are not motivated. They are not motivated because they cannot achieve communication. And now they have a lot of, technological resources that they can communicate by email, Instagram, Facebook. But it's a pity that they can write only one sentence. Why? Because in the classroom, teachers spend their valuable time with one sentence, one correct, accurate sentence. That's the problem.
So from what you said, I understand that there's some sort of actually psychology is also involved in testing, actually in all teaching and learning process. Like if we destroy the child's self-confidence, we are not going to achieve anything anyway. So let's just focus on meaning and teaching communicatively, so which moves us to the sake of the title. How would you define communicative testing?
Okay, as if we define, in fact, communicative language teaching focuses on meaningfulness. So the testing should be also based on meaning. Even one word would be very meaningful to the student. For example, at A2 level, I ask students some daily life questions from various topics, or I ask them to take part in a dialogue. I say, okay, this is your friend Carla. You are going to you are going to introduce each other. So Carla asks you some questions. Then they answer the question, like, what's your name? Then the student does not have to say, my name is blah, blah. Just say Hassan or Ali or Aisha, whatever it is. Then where do you live? Denizli. Even they don't use prepositions. And we know from interlanguage process that students do not use prepositions, auxiliary articles in their speech. Even native speaker children don't use these things. They will learn them by the time. They will produce them by the time. So if people read second language acquisition process, again, or morpheme studies, they will all read these things in the articles and textbooks or books related to this one. So we will let them answer. Even I had some students who could not spell very well, but they could write, let's say, ice hockeying, just Turkish, just like Turkish. But when you read it, you understand that that student responds in English. So after the exam, I talk with the student that this is the way this is written, but it will take them 3 times to own it, to acquire it. So we can ask daily life questions. For example, what's your favorite music? The student answers with only 3 letters, pop. Is it the correct answer? Yes, it is. So we shouldn't expect students to make full sentences. I mean, that problem comes from the direct method, from the years of age. Just look at the people around. Who makes full sentences? I mean, language is economic and concise. So you just respond what it is necessary. That's it. So if the teachers accept A1, A2, and B1 level, we have agreement with the students. I tell them that I am not going to deduce any point, any mark because of their grammatical problems. So students are comfortable. They say, what are you going to ask? Then I say, okay, you will listen and answer sub skills like scanning, skimming, referencing questions. So we do some exercise in the classroom as intensive reading. So in the exam, they come across similar tasks like open-ended, multiple choice, or information transfer tasks. So they are happy because that's what they usually do. And in writing, I tell them that you are going to introduce yourself with 100 words in a paragraph. So I introduce them cohesive devices like first of all, next, and then, linking words. And then I assign them that if you don't use them, you are just, writing sentences hanging in the air. So please follow this format. Then I give them extra mark. I mean, cohesive devices, 5 marks, and the content is 15 marks out of 20. So none of the students cannot ignore because it's 20 marks, in the exam. And also for speaking activities, we do interviews. I usually interview students 2 by 2, not 1 by 1. And that the student chooses his or her peer whom they trust or whom they think they can contribute to each other. So during the exam, students contribute to each other and it becomes a natural conversation. And usually people say, well, that's not fair. One student gives prompts to each other. That's normal because that's what's happening because of their problems. No, students will improve it by the time. So we should always, sympathize our students that they will learn. I mean, they will be masters of language by the time. So, and even believe me, within 3 hours a week, with one academic year, my students were really good, really competent in communicating with each other and with the people outside. And they came and thanked me because we didn't deal with grammar because they have done it in high school a lot. But this time they were just, hearing and producing depend on the prompt that they get. So that is communication, that's communicative testing. I wish I could show some examples, but we don't have any computer support. Next time, maybe. Yeah.
The next time in a webinar, we'd like to see you there. From moving on, what you said, can we say, would you please say a few words about testing to learn? Is it possible to enhance students' competence through testing? Okay, we've involved all the things you've suggested and made communicative testing involved in, integrated it into almost every part of our lessons. But what is it then, testing to learn?
Sure. I mean, if we tell students, if we just use positive washback effect, it's going to be on our side. So we tell students that I'm going to ask such and such tasks or such activities in the exam, then they are going to get ready for this. For example, I say you are going to introduce somebody in your family. So I'm going to choose that one. So they are just preparing, they are rehearsing. And, in the School of Foreign Languages, we see it a lot. For example, in the classroom, we do a lot of group work, pair work, or topic-based talks in the classroom. Then, during the speaking exam, a lot of students rehearse each other in the corridor, on the stairs, in the garden. They, try to make them talk. And we give them, let's say, 50 topics, and they are going to choose one of them. And then they are going to talk about that topic. So they try to memorize, they try to say something. Of course, memorization doesn't work itself because if you just ask an extension question, if they are not competent, they won't be able to continue. But still, all these efforts help them to be more communicative. So testing to learn means students will self-assessment. In CFR, we have can-do statements. Then at the end, I will still use them when I was teaching language, that student at the end of unit says, okay, I can talk about myself. I can introduce my family member. I can talk about my daily routine. When they have portfolio, they just go through the tasks that they haven't done in the classroom. So if you are consistent with what you do in the classroom in testing, in test items and in test activities, then students will be happy and we will have communicative results.
Thank you. Hocam, meanwhile, we are having some comments and also questions, which I'd like to combine and ask together. One of our friends wrote, there is in grade 2, one of the teachers had a writing exam. And there were some other comments also. Is there a difference in testing young learners and adults? We gave examples from School of Foreign Languages, and it's testing in general, I believe, focuses on adults or teenagers or older generation or higher levels, but we do test young learners as well. Testing young learners.
Of course, it's different because we don't teach the way we teach adults and teenagers with young learners, because they have different characteristics, and they usually expect immediate responses, immediate feedback from the teachers. So, in fact, actually, we don't test them. You know, according to regulation in Ministry of Education, students are officially tested when they are 4th grade, not 2nd grade, not 3rd grade. But still, we can assess how by observing students' performance in the classroom. They can, you know, listen and color activities. They can do, they can match the words and pictures. What else? They can do TPR activities. I mean, they can give comments to each other, or the teacher gives comments and the student responds. 2 comments, 3 comments, one after each other related to it. For example, go to the door, write your name, okay, put a plus next to your name. If they can follow this, that's wonderful. That's also testing, or that's also assessment. And if they can, you know, respond to some pictures with just one chunk, one name, nice weather, for example, raining or snowing or snow, even they can utter these things. Because usually with the 2nd grade and 3rd grade students, the purpose is they will have positive attitude towards language, and we want to improve their listening, receptive skills rather than productive skills. So we don't expect them to produce anything. When are they going to produce? In 3 times, 3 vakte kadar, when they are ready to produce. But it's a pity that our teachers usually have this attitude. Well, I teach them in the classroom, then they should produce. We do a lot of repetition, so they should go on, you know, repeating the same thing, or they should produce. No, repetition does not help acquisition a lot. You know, there are a lot of articles about it. That's why we gave up behaviorism, and now we are cognitive, constructivist, and humanistic approaches. If it worked, then we would stick with audiolingual method, you know. So they can repeat after the teacher. They can make some cliche statements, but that doesn't mean that they are internalizing the language. So that's why we do usually recognition type of tasks with them. So they can listen and paint. They can just put a tick, or just put a plus, or they can match, they can react, they can respond non-verbally. And if they can utter, some of them can utter. I mean, there are fast learners and slow learners. Some are more motivated to produce earlier. It's just we'll be able to produce or say mother or anne in 3 months. Who can guarantee this? Nobody. So when some children will start, let's say at the 8th month, some children will start 3 years. Or even I have come across some children who started to say anne at the age of 5. That was too late, of course. But it's a matter of, you know, internalization of the language. Whenever, when they are ready, they will produce. So the teachers should not urge them to say, okay, say this, answer this question, or they shouldn't, blame, and they shouldn't distract or destroy. I would use this word. They shouldn't destroy their self-confidence. So they shouldn't also compare with other students. I mean, let them enjoy. They shouldn't compare the production of other students with the slow ones. So, in our culture, usually they are considered lazy students, hardworking students. No, it's a matter of integration of yourself with the objective. I mean, if some students, like language, they, shout it everywhere, they dance with it, they even they utter something, so let them enjoy the language, and we shouldn't correct them very often. We can take notes, and we can make some delayed correction. In English, we say this way, or in English, we utter it this way. You can give some examples, but that doesn't guarantee that they will repair. So it takes time. It's a matter of internalization of the input.
So, okay. So I understand that there is a difference between teaching young learners and adults, of course, because we teach them differently anyway, and we should try to stay away from testing young learners. It's not official, but I'm not so sure about that. In that, again, it was in one of the comments as well. Teachers get a lot of pressure from parents, even not from parents, even if you're saying don't compare, being compared. So we shouldn't do this to children, but it's somehow inevitable. But if we have to do it, can we say that at least we can do it symbolically? I mean, to boost the child's self-confidence, because in the end, you again said, don't destroy the child's self-confidence. You said that in testing adults as well. So is that the key point we should focus on? Without at least destroying the child's self-confidence, we can give the child a chance to practice English. Is that so?
Yes, and they are going to practice depending on their competence. Okay, sometimes they would be silent, sometimes they would produce, and you never know. I mean, when they are ready to produce, they are like daisies. You can't believe that they start talking. Just it happens in the first language. I mean, can a mother say to their child, look, I feed you, I clean you, I provide all these facilities, and start talking tomorrow, or start talking when you are 6 months old? Can we say this? No. So that's a matter of internalization. I mean, when they feel that they are not ready, even they can't utter a word. I have come across these situations when we were abroad. We had, some friends from Turkey. Even I came across one instance that my friend were from the ELT department, and he couldn't even utter a word for a week. I mean, he just got into silent period, because it's a matter of brain, when the brain muscles contract. It takes time to get it back or release it back. It takes time. We don't know when it's going to happen. So we shouldn't pressure our students that they should be able to say this. They should be able to get such mark. No need. I mean, when even adults are under pressure in this respect. And when you talk to people around, they say, well, I can understand, but I cannot talk. And if believe me, if you talk with them, they had a lot of trauma by their teachers because of their mistakes. So if you just, criticizing people because of their mistakes, they will easily improve their communication. As Turkish people say, gözünü kaşını yara yara. They will be able to communicate with the people, and it does. If you invite foreign people to your house, even your mother and father will communicate with them without knowing the language. So how? Then it's a matter of human nature that we can communicate even without the language. But here we try to embed some input. Then by using the input, students can error hunters in the classroom. So they just they should be diagnostic. They should take records of problems in the classroom and provide input individually if possible, and motivate students to do more activities rather than focusing on grammar activities. They should focus on games, stories, watching films, watching whatever they like. They can listen to stories. For example, if even this could be done in Turkey, we would achieve a lot of so we will assign students to listen to a short story, 10-minute short story, and they are going to listen to the story every day. I mean, for 1 week, they are just going to listen to it, repeat it, just like listening to a song. And at the end of 1 week, watching every day or 5 days a week, then or listening to that story 5 days a week, believe me, they'll start uttering the words that they hear in that story. So imagine that we have almost how many months? 6 months they attend schools. So it becomes something like 24. How many weeks? 24 weeks. Yeah. So that goes on like this, and then as an extensive listening, as an extensive reading, if the students are motivated, they'll have their own input by themselves.
Awesome. Okay, thank
Any more
you.
questions?
So we understand that we shouldn't be error hunters going around trying to penalize students. Instead, we should be patient and try to boost the students' self-confidence, whatever the age they are in.
Yeah, I mean, excuse me, when they produce something good, please boost it. You know what's happening with our children? They say something like da da da da da dede, huh? They say dede. Let's have have a party today. Why? Because the baby said dede today, or the baby utters another word. Then you have a party at home. We should boost it, and we should reinforce whatever they can produce, and we should try to understand with limited words that they use. Then the teachers will see that their students will start talking day by day and communicating.
In the end, we make mistakes as teachers anyway, so students should have the chance to make a mistake as well. So we shouldn't just punish them for their mistakes. Okay. So Turan Hocam, we understand the importance of teaching, testing communicatively, and it's different from other subjects. What can you tell us about the difficulty of testing for skills communication? We're all convinced that we need to do the testing communicatively, focus on the skills, give the child a chance to transfer meaning maybe, and supposing we have overcome all the problems of parents and everything, what are the difficulties waiting? What can you tell us about the difficulty of testing for skills communicatively?
Well, the main problem is teachers cannot find enough sample communicative tasks, but they don't know how to assess, how to evaluate it. So usually, especially with lower level students, when we ask a question, there shouldn't be one way of answering it. So students should think about different ways of answering one question. So, of course, there are some, factual information that there is pat response. But if possible, just if to give an example, if you ask student, where are you from? The student may say, from my home, or from Denizli, or from such place. Or even they don't say from, they just say Denizli, they utter one word. Or they make full statement. So we should accept them all as correct answer. And if they are going to produce a paragraph, then, especially in giving marks, I said I never give them a negative, I never assess their grammar. So what I assess is, I assess content, organization, and vocabulary. 3 things. So out of 10 marks, let's say, content is 60%. Usually they get 6 marks out of content. And then 2 marks from organization and 2 marks with appropriate vocabulary usage. Especially teachers find difficulty in how to assess, let's say, reading. Usually we have a general term, reading comprehension or listening comprehension. No, try to assess sub skills. For example, you can assess skimming. There is one skimming question. What is it? What is this about? What is the dialogue about? They should utter one word, or if they are going to be productive. Well, you can give choices to students as multiple choice. You can give choices like true, false. So that's going to be recognition type of items. And in most of the textbooks at those levels, we have and how. So what, where, when, etc. That these things can be asked either with multiple choice or open-ended tasks, which means students will find the answer in the passage and write down that as a word, as a chunk, or as a statement. And the other difficulty is testing speaking. So a lot of teachers think that it takes a lot of time. That's true, especially if you have a lot of students in one school. I know that I work, for example, in Niğde, Çamar'da, and I had 600 students in that school. At that time, it was middle school and high school together. So I couldn't imagine myself testing 600 students. It would take almost a week. But still, you can do some activities in the classroom that students would participate as pair work, group work. So through observations. And also, you can arrange a testing, once in a semester. You can arrange it by the help of other teachers. So I would do it by the help of nöbetçi öğretmen, that teacher would coming and then keeping them busy, and I was taking students 2 by 2 and having 5-minute speaking exam. That's a matter of organization, but if there are zümre or teams in the school, then they can help each other, and one of them could be interlocutor, the other could be Hughes' book is a really good one for this one, and then Brown's book, testing in language teaching. There are some scales there, and even I can share if they send me an email, scales for A1 and A2, B1 levels, and B2 and above levels. So they are going to test students' performance based on content, organization, vocabulary, and when the students are B2 and above level, I test students' accuracy, mechanics, or fluency in terms of language accuracy as well. So if you share these skills to your students, then it's easy for them to get ready. They know what to be tested, so they get ready for this.
Okay, thank you, Hocam. So we are running out of time. So if we are to summarize the whole thing, we get the limits in the topic of this chat. We'll be talking about grammar next week and the week after speaking. Maybe there we can answer some of the questions. But in a nutshell, what are the most important tips you would share with language teachers in terms of testing? Just a few tips, let's say, what are the most important ones?
Okay. Well, with receptive skills, listening, reading, or watching, they can ask skimming, scanning, referencing tasks that they do in the classroom. So it will, if students will have the facility of finding the answer on the passage, I don't think the lower level students will be able to do critical listening or critical watching, etc. And with the writing, they can do some model paragraphs in the classroom, and the students will imitate them in the classroom. They will write and they will do process writing with their students. And in the exam, imagine that they have covered 5 or 6 topics. They can ask one of them. And they will do the assessment with a scale like content, organization, vocabulary, not accuracy. And they should be patient. They should always include, especially in terms of positive washback effect. So all students and teachers should know that the exam paper will include listening or watching part, reading part, writing part. These 3 should be must in the exam paper. And also the students and the teachers should know that they are going to give one speaking exam at the end of the semester. So students should get ready for this. Then we can create communicative students through assessment, because assessment is given a lot of importance in this country. So if we change the assessment type, other people will be affected by this. And let me just give an example. In Adana, when I was working in the School of Foreign Languages, we just changed the assessment type. I mean, we didn't include grammar, but we just assessed students' skill-based assessment. Even the private tutoring people telephoned how to write, they ask this question. You know, you ask students to write argumentative essays with 300 words at the B2 level. What does it mean? Even private tutors, you know, were affected by it, and then they wanted to know what it is like. What does lecture and note taking mean? Because they were academic skills, you know, we expected students to have before they go to their departments. So if we change the assessment types, then the private tutoring and dershane even will change their attitude towards teaching.
Oh, I see. Okay, so you're